Maria had been working at the mansion for less than a month, but she already knew the cries of those babies better than the sound of her own footsteps. Every morning, when she climbed the marble staircase with her cleaning supplies, the wailing from upstairs never stopped. Neighbors whispered that the children were cursed, that no doctor could cure their endless suffering. But Maria didn't believe in curses. She believed in pain, and she recognized the pain in those tiny voices. The father, Daniel, a man of wealth and reputation, had become a shadow of himself. At only 35, he looked 10 years older. His tailored suits hung loose, his eyes sunken with exhaustion. Each time Maria saw him pacing the halls with his phone pressed to his ear, begging another doctor for answers, her heart clenched. It was the desperation of a man who would give his fortune, his very soul, for a moment of peace for his daughters. "Sir, you need rest," the housekeeper whispered one afternoon as Daniel rubbed his temples. "Rest?" He laughed bitterly. "How do I rest when my children suffer like this?" Maria paused at the stairwell, watching quietly. She knew his pain better than anyone realized. A year ago, she had lost her unborn child at 4 months. Since then, the sound of a baby crying had pierced her heart like a knife. Perhaps that was why she felt so connected to these little girls, though they weren't hers. That day, something inside her stirred. She found herself standing outside the nursery door, her hand trembling on the knob. The room was painted in soft pastel colors, filled with toys that had never been touched. The girls lay in their cribs, red-faced and screaming, their tiny fists clenched as if fighting invisible demons. Maria knew she shouldn't be there. Daniel was strict about who entered, but a force stronger than reason pulled her forward. She reached for a small blanket, pressing it against her chest, and whispered, "If my little one had lived, you would be her age now." Tears blurred her vision. And then, from the doorway, a broken voice startled her. Daniel was watching. Daniel's voice was heavy, rough from nights without sleep. "They've been crying for hours again," he muttered, leaning against the doorframe as though the weight of the world pressed on his shoulders. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loosened, and his eyes, those once proud eyes, were now hollow. Maria froze, clutching the blanket to her chest. "I'm sorry, sir. I shouldn't be in here." But instead of anger, Daniel's face broke with defeat. He walked toward the cribs, scooping up one of the babies, Elena, her cheeks flushed, her tiny mouth gasping between cries. "I've called every doctor in this city. Neurologists, pediatricians, specialists, they all say the same thing. The girls are healthy." "Healthy?" His voice cracked. "Does this look like healthy to you?" The sound of his despair filled the room more than the wailing ever could. Maria felt her throat tighten. She remembered her own nights crying silently into her pillow after losing her baby, nights when no medicine could heal the ache inside. Pain recognized pain. "May I?" The words escaped her lips before she could stop them. Daniel blinked, startled. "What? May I hold her? Just for a moment?" He hesitated. For weeks, he had refused to let anyone but the doctors touch the girls. But tonight, desperation dulled his caution. With trembling hands, he placed Elena into Maria's arms. What happened next silenced the room. The moment Maria cradled the infant, the piercing cries stopped, like a storm suddenly swallowed by sunlight. Elena's tiny fists relaxed, her eyelids fluttered, and she gazed at Maria with wide, curious eyes. The screaming quieted into soft breaths, and within minutes, the baby fell into the kind of peaceful sleep Daniel hadn't seen in months. Daniel stood frozen, his lips parted, his hands shaking as he looked from the baby to Maria. How did you do that?" "I don't know," Maria whispered, rocking the child gently. "I only felt I should hold her." From the crib, the second twin, Sophia, let out a cry, but not the frantic wail from before. It was softer, almost as if she, too, wanted the warmth Maria carried. Daniel lifted her, and the moment he placed Sophia against Maria's shoulder, the same miracle unfolded. Silence. Calm. Sleep. For the first time in months, peace blanketed the nursery. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands, his eyes filling with tears. "I spent a fortune on doctors, And it was you, a maid, who did the impossible. Maria shook her head, her own tears slipping free. It's not me, sir. It's love. Sometimes all a child needs is love. But neither of them noticed the shadow moving at the end of the hallway. The family doctor, arriving earlier than expected, her eyes narrowing at the sight before her. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor, sharp and deliberate, breaking the fragile peace inside the nursery. Daniel turned, startled, just as the door opened. Dr. Clara stepped inside, her white coat pristine, her expression cold and commanding. "What's going on here?" Her voice cut through the air like a blade. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, wiping his eyes as if ashamed to have been caught showing weakness. "Clara, look, they're sleeping. For the first time in weeks, they're actually sleeping." The doctor's sharp gaze moved from Daniel to Maria, who still cradled one of the twins. The sight made her jaw tighten. Sleeping? In her arms. Maria lowered her head, suddenly aware she had overstepped. "Forgive me, doctor. I only wanted to help." "Help?" Clara's tone dripped with disdain. "You're a maid, not a nurse. These children are fragile, born premature. Any wrong touch could harm them." Daniel frowned, torn between his lifelong trust in Clara and the undeniable reality before his eyes. "But you don't understand." They stopped crying the moment she held them. "You've seen it yourself. Months of screaming, and now silence." Clara crossed her arms, her composure unshaken. "Coincidence. Nothing more. Babies cry, then eventually exhaust themselves. You should know better than to believe in fairy tales, Daniel." Maria wanted to defend herself, but fear sealed her lips. The authority in Clara's voice was undeniable. After all, she was the doctor, the expert. Maria was just nobody. Clara approached the cribs, peering down at the peacefully sleeping girls. Her lips curved into a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "They need their medication. I'll prepare it now." Daniel instinctively stepped closer. "But they're calm. Do they really need it tonight?" "Especially tonight," Clara insisted, pulling 2 small syringes from her bag. "It's best to maintain consistency. If we skip a dose, their bodies may react poorly." Maria felt a chill crawl down her spine. Something about the way Clara handled the syringes didn't seem right. The liquid inside shimmered unnaturally, and the doctor's grip was almost too eager. "Doctor," Maria's voice trembled. "May I ask what exactly that is?" Clara shot her a withering glare. "A supplement. Nothing you'd understand. Do your job and leave the medical matters to me." Daniel hesitated, his instincts warring with his trust. For years, Clara had cared for his family. She had been there when his wife passed, when the twins were born. She was respected, educated, experienced. But tonight, Maria's presence and the sudden miracle she brought made him question everything. Maria, sensing his doubt, spoke gently. "Sir, they're finally at peace. Sometimes what the heart gives is more powerful than any medicine." Her words lingered in the air, heavy with truth. Clara's eyes darkened. "Enough," she snapped, her mask of professionalism cracking. "If you care for these children, Daniel, you'll let me do my work." Daniel swallowed hard, glancing from the babies to the syringes in her hands. His heart screamed to protect them, yet his mind wrestled with fear of being wrong. What if refusing her caused more harm? What if trusting Maria was reckless? Swaley, the housekeeper who had served the family for 2 decades, stepped into the doorway quietly. She had seen it all, Maria's gentle touch, Clara's icy demeanor. With a voice steady but firm, she said, "Sir, I've been here long enough to know when something feels wrong. Tonight feels wrong." Clara's head snapped toward her. "Stay out of this. You're just staff." But Daniel no longer heard the insults. His eyes were fixed on the twins, their tiny chests rising and falling steadily in Maria's arms. Peace, health, life, things he hadn't seen for months. He took a slow breath, then said softly, "Put the syringes away, Clara. Tonight, they don't need them." The doctor's hand trembled ever so slightly before she forced a smile. "As you wish." She slipped the syringes back in her bag, though Maria noticed the way her knuckles whitened as she gripped them. The moment Clara left the room, Maria felt an icy certainty settle in her chest. The babies weren't sick. They had never needed medicine. Something far darker was at play, and she feared Clara was at the center of it. The next morning, Maria entered the mansion with a heaviness in her chest. The memory of last night lingered. The twins asleep in her arms, the doctor's cold glare, the way Daniel's hands had trembled when he told Clara to put the syringes away. For a moment, Maria had felt hope, but that hope was shattered when she climbed the stairs and heard it again, the cries. Louder, sharper, more desperate than ever. She rushed to the nursery. The twins were red-faced, their tiny limbs flailing as if in pain. Swaley, the housekeeper, was already there, rocking them helplessly. "They started an hour ago," she said, her face etched with worry. "And they haven't stopped." Maria's heart sank. "Did Clara come this morning?" "Yes. At 7 sharp. She gave them their medicine. Said it would calm them." Swaley's lips pressed into a thin line. But it only made things worse. The cries clawed at Maria's soul. She reached instinctively for Elena, but Swaley grabbed her wrist. "Careful. The doctor warned us. If she sees you touching them again, she'll have you dismissed." Maria's chest tightened, but her eyes burned with quiet resolve. Let her try. These babies need love, not whatever poison she's giving them. She gently lifted Elena. The baby's cries softened almost immediately, her tiny body relaxing against Maria's chest. Within minutes, Sophia, too, had quieted, calmed by nothing more than Maria's presence. Swaley's eyes widened. "It's true. You have something, Minina. Something the doctor doesn't want us to see." Maria lowered her voice. "Or something she wants to hide." That afternoon, Clara returned. She swept into the nursery with her usual air of authority, her heels clicking against the floor. "How are my patients?" she asked, her smile polished but hollow. "They were restless," Daniel admitted, his voice weary. But they calmed down again. Clara's eyes darted to Maria, who stood at the edge of the room with Elena still in her arms. The doctor's smile stiffened. "I told you not to let her touch them," she said sharply. Daniel shifted uneasily. "Clara, they stopped crying when she—" "That's dangerous." Clara snapped, her composure cracking. This girl could be carrying infections, bacteria from cleaning supplies. One wrong touch could kill them. Maria's face flushed, but before she could speak, Swaley stepped forward. "Forgive me, doctor, but I've worked here 20 years. I know what's clean and what isn't. And I've never seen those babies as peaceful as when Maria holds them." Clara turned on her, eyes blazing. "Your staff, not medical professionals. Keep your opinions to yourself." But Daniel's doubt was growing. Maria could see it in the way his gaze lingered on the twins, then on the syringes Clara was preparing. His instincts were at war with his trust in the doctor who had guided him through the darkest days of his life. Maria took a step forward, her voice trembling but firm. "Sir, may I ask you something? Every time she gives them medicine, do they get better or worse?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Daniel froze, his mind racing through nights of endless cries, days of despair, months of failed treatments. Slowly, he whispered, "Worse." Clara's face paled, but she quickly recovered. "Nonsense. Withdrawal symptoms, that's all. The body fights before it heals. It's perfectly normal." But the seed of doubt had already taken root. Later that night, Maria found Swaley in the kitchen, scribbling notes into her old leather notebook. "What are you writing?" Maria asked. Swaley tapped the page. "Times. Every time Clara give the medicine, I mark the hour. And every time, an hour later, the babies scream worse than before. Always the same pattern." Maria's breath caught. She's not curing them. She's making them sick. The realization made her blood run cold. But why? Why would a doctor, trusted, respected, do such a thing? The answer came sooner than Maria expected. The following evening, Clara arrived earlier than usual. From the shadows of the staircase, Maria watched as the doctor pulled a small vial from a hidden pouch inside her bag. It wasn't the same medicine Daniel had seen before. This one shimmered clear like water, but Maria felt a chill run down her spine, just looking at it. She whispered to Swaley, who had crept beside her. "Did you see that? She brought it in secretly." Swaley nodded, her face grim. "I'll keep watch. You find out what she's giving them." Maria's heart pounded. She knew that if she was caught, Clara could destroy her. But as the cries of the twins echoed once more through the mansion, Maria realized she no longer had a choice. She would uncover the truth, even if it cost her everything. Maria waited until Clara left the nursery, her heels clicking confidently down the hallway. Only when the sound faded did Maria slip inside. The twins were still restless, their tiny cries weak but pained. On the dresser sat 2 bottles prepared by the doctor, the liquid inside glistening unnaturally. Her hands shook as she lifted one bottle. The seal had been punctured, tampered with. She uncapped it and brought it close to her nose. A faint, chemical scent stung her senses. This wasn't medicine. It was something else. "Maria," Swaley whispered from the doorway, clutching her notebook. "I saw her inject it. She thought I wasn't watching." Maria's chest tightened. "We need proof." That evening, when Daniel returned, Maria stood her ground. Her heart thundered, but her voice was steady. "Sir, please, don't give them this. Look at Swaley's notes. Every time she administers her so-called medicine, the girls get worse. Every single time." Daniel's hands trembled as he flipped through the notebook. Each page screamed the truth. Patterns of sickness aligned perfectly with Clara's visits. His eyes darted from the book to his daughters, then back to Maria. "If what you say is true, then what has she been giving them?" Before Maria could answer, Clara appeared in the doorway. Her smile was tight, but her eyes burned with fury. "Daniel, don't listen to them. They're manipulating you. I'm a doctor here." "No," Maria said firmly, surprising even herself. "A doctor heals. You're poisoning them." The room fell into silence. Daniel's face hardened. "Clara, what's in those bottles?" For the first time, Clara faltered. Her practiced calm cracked. "It's a stimulant. A harmless one. They needed it to suffer." Daniel roared, his voice breaking with rage. "To keep them sick, so you'd always be needed?" Clara's silence was her confession. The mask she had worn for years crumbled in an instant. Within hours, Daniel called another physician, who confirmed the girls had been given substances no infant should ever ingest. Clara was taken away in disgrace, her years of deceit collapsing into handcuffs and whispered condemnation. In the quiet that followed, Maria rocked the babies in her arms, their cries finally softening into the steady rhythm of sleep. Daniel stood nearby, watching with tears streaming freely. "You saved them," he whispered. "You saw what I couldn't." Maria shook her head. "I only gave them what every child deserves, love." For the first time in months, peace settled over the mansion. The cries ceased, replaced by gentle breathing, by hope reborn. Daniel knew the road ahead would not be easy. The wounds Clara left ran deep. But as he looked at Maria, holding his daughters as if they were her own, he realized the cure had been in front of him all along.